Hello friends, welcome to C# Intermediate to Advanced program. In this sub-series, we have been looking at application debugging. In the last video, we learned about the basics of breakpoints. In this video, we will learn what is step in, step out, and step over. So these options are useful to execute the program line by line and how the execution flow should occur in terms of function calls. These are all the slides from previous video. Once program execution breaks at the breakpoint, we saw that in the previous video, a developer can execute the instructions statement by statement. That means a programmer can execute one statement at a time. Then he can execute the next line of statement and so on. So when executing the statement line by line, we should know the options step over, step in, and step out. So these options are useful when we execute the program line by line, which involves function calls. Say for example, we have function fx. Let's state that fx1 function is calling fx2. Then we will also assume fx2 is calling the function fx3 and fx3 finally returns. So now if you see, now let's explore step over. Also we will assume that we have a breakpoint here at the very first line. So the program halts here at fx1, and when you choose the option for step over, it will be a context menu option or a toolbar button. So once you click that, the program will execute the next line of statement. After that, if you press step over again, it will execute fx2. So here, when the program execution is at this line, when you opt for the option step over, it will completely execute this function and the execution resumes to next line, and it continues like this. So if you see, we debugged the statement line by line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the sequence is the same. So even though there is a function involved here, we executed all the lines. So the execution is here. So this is the line numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here it is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So when the breakpoint is here, if you see, the sequence is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's how the step over function works. So the step over option doesn't jump inside the fx2. Now let us look into step in. So when we go through the step in option, as usual the program will halt at the breakpoint, and when you ask for step in, it will go to the next line and the execution stays here. So if you call for step in again, the call reaches to next function here, fx2. Then execution continues. Step in, execution reaches here, when you make a step in, it will go to the next function call, then the execution continues. After that, we will return. I mean, return in the sense we will return here, then we will execute these two lines, then we will return here, then from here we will reach here, then we will execute this line. So the step over is like this, and when you look at the step in, it reaches 1 as usual, 2, then it reaches 3. After that, it won't move to 4, but instead it will go to 1.1 and 1.2, executes like this. And you can look at the arrows here and how the execution is going on in terms of step in. So the difference between step over and step in is when there is a function that is encountered. Let's say you are at fx3 here, and when you opt for step over, it will execute all the code in the fx3 and step overs this fx3 function. So that's why we call it as a step over. It will step over all the statements in fx3 and reaches the next line. But if you opt for step in, it will move into the called function. Then we can start executing it one by one. So for now, let's assume that our breakpoint is here. And once you make step over, what happens? The execution directly reaches to the next line, or it will come out of the statement wherever you are. So if you make a call, so even if there is no breakpoint, and when your current execution line stays here, and if you opt for step over, so fx3 is called here in this line. When you make a call to step over, the execution flow directly reaches here after the fx3 call in the previous function or in the calling function. So that means it executes all the remaining statement in a single go, and it reaches here and it waits here. So if you make a call to step over again from this point, from here it will directly go and reaches on this line. So that's the use of step over. So simply, step out. So simply step over is to skip the execution of a particular function. So when your line by line execution stays at a function call, if you make a call to step over, you will execute all the functionality here. And if this function calls some other function, you will execute that function also. So both these two functions get executed and you will directly reach here. So that's step over. Step in. Step in will step inside the called function. Step over will step out of this function and goes to whoever is called it. And if you make a call to step over again, you will come down in the call stack. Call stack we will explore later. So this is what called call stack. So when you make a call to step out, you will come out of this function and reach the next statement in the calling function. Alright, now it is demo time. You can download the video from the very first part of this series. The sample exe is provided there. Now we will go to the demo. Alright, this is the sample exe. Alright, this is our sample exe. We talked about this exe in the previous video. Now we will go ahead and put a breakpoint in the very first statement of button click. So if you see, this is our button, and the button click event is here. I'm keeping a breakpoint in the second statement. Alright, let us start. If you see here, breakpoint is hit and we are at this statement. Now you can perform step in, step over and step out option. And if you see in the debug window, this is a step into. You can look at this keyboard shortcut also. It is F11. Step in, here also it shows it is jumping inside a function. Step over, the icon shows you are stepping over a particular function. That means you are completely executing that function, then executing the next line of statement. So this one is the step out option. So sometimes the toolbar button, I mean the debug toolbar, this is a debug toolbar, so I turned it off. Now I will turn it on. Sometimes you may not see this step in, step over and step out option. If that is the case, go to tools, customize, then go to command option. In the customize dialog, commands tab, under that click on the debug, and here you will see all the options. If I scroll down, you can see step in to step out, step over. So these are all the options here. Say for example, if you want to add a button, so for now, step into current process, stop applying code changes. Say for example, I'm just dragging and dropping it over the toolbar, so the button option will be available here. So likewise, you can add all these options. Say for example, customize, debug, let's state in your case only step over option is displayed. So if you want to add other two options, the procedure will be same. So it's customizing toolbar is nothing but you can customize your toolbar options. So what are all the command you want to have in your toolbar that you can deal with this. So step over, step in, and then step out. So you can look at other option also. So if you see, there are other command buttons, I mean the toolbar group. So if you want to add or remove some of the commands, you can use the same technique. I mean you can use the customize toolbar and start adding the stuff inside the toolbar. Now we will make the step-by-step execution. If you see here, I am opting for step over option. So it just executed this particular line. Then I am going for step over again. It executed this line. Next, this statement, if you look at here, it involves two function call. One is number valid. Another one is the API function. So is number valid is written by us. If you see here, this is where is number valid function. Now let me go through the step over option. If I choose this option, it will not enter inside this function. Instead it executes that function. Then it landed out here. So this means whatever number we provided, that is valid. Alright, now let us stop the debugging. We will run it again, and this time we will provide an invalid number. So once again I am using the step over option, and if you see, it doesn't execute this. That means is number valid option is failed. So here we get exception. Why? Because our number is not valid, so we are getting the exception. So this is how you have to debug. So now we looked at step over option. All right, now let us explore the step in option, and we will debug is number valid. I'm choosing the step over option, step over, then I'm choosing step into option. If you see, when I click step into, the execution reaches the called function is number valid. Now I can go for step over again. So here I am trying to parse an invalid integer number. Here we are getting the exception. But we looked into step into option and we saw how it is entered inside the is number valid option, and its number valid is not working the way we want it. We need to check the return value. So it's boolean, right? So if it is true, then based on that we have to return. So in the previous debug statement we discovered that is number valid is checking only for this numeric range. But if you want to RET, so then this condition is true and return also true. That means the try parse int will pass when you actually pass a number. Now let us see how to debug this. There are multiple options to debug this particular line. One is directly putting a breakpoint here, removing it here, and if you see, this time I'm providing 12 because I'm interested only in this statement. If you see, it returned true. Why? Because the input is actually a number. Now we will break the execution. We will restart it again. This time we will provide invalid one, QA. So the return value is false and it will return false. All right. So just now you looked into the step in and step out, step over. Now let's put a breakpoint once again here directly in this line. We will execute it. This time choosing the step into option so that the function will get called, and I am executing line by line. So x is less than 3600 and return value also true, so we will return a true stating number is valid. All right, now let's once again execute step into to step inside the sum if prime. Then inside I am doing a step over. That means I want to execute line by line here. If you see here, we are once again calling the is prime. So first we are passing 1. So okay, that's not a is number valid. This time we are making call to is prime. So if you want to see what happens here, I am choosing step into. So now we landed inside is prime. If you remember, This is the first function that get called when user clicks the button. From there we stepped into some if prime. We came here some if prime. Then from some if prime we once again step into is prime. That means we called step into twice to get inside the function. Now as usual I'm going with a step over option. Now I'm going to execute this line, and if you want to examine the number you can place the cursor. The number is 1, that is coming from the loop. So here the condition will evaluate true. So we will return true. So since it is returning true, and if you see when I'm going for step over option, it is appending the content I, which is 1 here, that we converting it into string, then we are appending a semicolon that will get added into our text area. So once the execution is completed, you will see that number get printed there. So I'm choosing step over. This time the input is 2. So when input is 2, it will reach here and it will still return true. So now this time I'm not choosing step into, but I am choosing step over option. If you see, we doesn't land inside this is prime. Now the loop is executing for 3rd time. I is 3. This time I'm asking to get inside the function. Here we are trying to divide the number and we are returning true. Okay, now this time, this is the last time, we will step into. Now if you see, I'm going to do a step out option. Okay, so maybe I click a step over. I will do step into. Okay, now let's explore the step over option. If you see here, from btn get result click, we landed into sum if prime from this line. From sum if line we landed into is prime. Now have a look at here. I am choosing the step out option. Step out means step out of this function. That means it won't momentarily get out of this line, but it will resume the execution for this function. It will completely execute, then it will return. Alright, step out option. Once I do the step out, if you see, it executed that function and landed it here. And if I do step out once again, it will execute this function completely, then it will come out of this function. See, that's all. So now we can go for a step over and we can continue. So by this time you are aware of the debug option, step in, step out and step over. That's all here in this video. If you look at here, we explored all the option: step over, step in and step out. So we used our button click, then sum if prime and then is prime. So all these function, and we explored step over. We saw how the step over option executes the called function completely. Then we looked into step into. That means we step inside the called function. Then we looked at step out. Step out means when we are here, when we make a call to step out, we execute all the remaining statement on that function. Then we will step out of that function. thereby reaching the next statement in the function call of the calling function. That's all here in this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.